Hi, Abigail. Hi, Morgana. How are you guys
Ah,
doing today?
very
Very well, thank
good.
you.
How are you doing?
I'm doing good, and I really got to say first, I really enjoyed the film that you guys made, so thank you guys so much for that.
Thank you so much. We're
Thank
really
you.
glad to hear it.
I'm glad to see you guys too. So let's get this started. So obviously, this collaboration is something special because I felt like the film's message was really nailed in with both clarity and its own flair, both visually and tonally. So for you, Abigail, what was it like to develop this as a first-time director?
I didn't direct the film. Our wonderful director was Valentina V, who was also our
Oh.
director of photography.
What was it like to work and sort of build the film and go through that like entire process? What was that like?
Well, as a writer, it's very rewarding when people take your vision seriously. It was an experience I also had when I wrote The Prince, which was my debut play a couple of years ago. It's always really wonderful, and it's a lovely gift when other artists come together to kind of help make something I've dreamt up in my head into a reality. Like I write the words oak smoke California hickory burger, and somebody goes and designs a burger, and it's so validating and wonderful to kind of share a little bit of a dream with someone.
Definitely. I really just love the vision that you put together with Valentina. And as a YouTube creator, what do you think were some of the biggest challenges transitioning from sort of shorter form content into something big like this film?
In fact, I've always been an actor. I've been acting since I was very small, and I did that before YouTube. I went to professional drama school in the UK and trained. It's just that YouTube happened to become sort of a famous to use that word before my acting work and my writing work did. So the last few years of doing work with the BBC and with Sky and Netflix and on Star Wars and House of the Dragon has been a process of putting together the digital side of my career and the more traditional Hollywood side of my career. And that's what Nebula is trying to do as well, is build that bridge from the digital creation world to Hollywood.
Definitely. It must be just such a long but obviously great process to go through because you both have made such a well, great awesome film here. So for both of you also, what do you think were some of the biggest challenges that came when envisioning this film, shooting it, and just working through the entire post-production process as well?
Big challenges.
Yeah, I mean, big challenges for me is really, you know, serving the emotional layers of this film when such an intimate environment was a unique but fun challenge. A lot of this film is spent between two characters at a table together. There aren't very big, massive action sequences. It's not a lot of different locations, a lot of
Mm,
different set changes and things like that. It is two characters at a table with one another with the sort of emotional energy provided by not just the performances, by the lighting, the camera movements. It boils everything down to just a human to human, well, almost human, somewhat human interaction between these two
mm,
characters. So, a lot of the projects I've been in before, especially on camera, have been very grand effects heavy projects. A lot
mm,
of practical effects, a lot of makeup, a lot of special sort of elements and things like that that were pretty much like the main focus. So getting to get beyond that and get back to just like the bare elements of acting, like the raw elements of just two characters interacting with each other, bouncing off each other and
mm,
building up that chemistry. Um, it's hard to even call it a challenge because the joy from it, I mean, that really brought me back to what made me so interested in getting into acting in the first place were
mm,
more of these intimate, real, raw, emotional moments.
mm. I would say my biggest challenge was working with this asshole. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. She's wonderful. I really enjoyed the challenge that came with being an executive producer. Because when you are a lead actor and when you're also taking a role in production too, it's a leadership role. You have to be able to, at the very least, stand at the head of the team. I remember on Django, I remember Matthias Schoenaerts telling me, I said to him, like, how do you feel like being the lead? You're the guy on the poster. And he's like, well, it's a responsibility. And, in my time playing lead roles since Django, I have come to understand what he means by that. So taking on that leadership responsibility and being able to be at the very least the figurehead of the team is a challenge that I really really enjoyed, and I'm grateful to have had the opportunity for that professional development.
Definitely. And those challenges certainly came through because you guys made an awesome film with so much emotion. And on the emotion itself, I found the film's main idea of essentially being gaslight, gatekeep, girl boss really unique because it's presented in such a way that has this heavy weight to it between this one-to-one interaction. What were the main motivations and inspirations that helped you land on this theme and execute it through this modern fantasy perspective?
Well, I have in real life been in an abusive relationship. The film is about abusive relationships and trauma. So I knew that I could mine my trauma for content. No, but for real, as an artist, I'm interested in the moments when people refuse to know something, or when there is something that's right in front of them, but we ignore it and we refuse to see it. Those are the moments that I'm like most interested in at the moment as an artist. And so I wrote this character, Belle, who has something very obvious in front of her, that her relationship is unhealthy, and she refuses to see it. And I'm like, oh, that's an interesting place to begin. And Faye's job throughout the film is to try and get her to see this. But Faye is also like refusing to look at something too, which is really how deeply she was hurt by it. So deliberate ignorance, and when we know something but we don't let ourselves know it, that was, I think, what inspired me. It's a very like fertile ground for drama, I think.
And I think for me with Faye, she's showing up for Belle in this film because she feels in her mind she's the only one to help Belle escape from this trauma and from this toxic relationship. And what we discover almost arrogantly for her is she finds herself to be like the perfect example of just like, do what I did. Do what I did to get beyond that. It'll work for you. I just need to drive this into you that if you just act more like I did to get out of this relationship, you'll recover. But what we discover with Faye is that her recovery is not a road that she has done driving down, and that it is not a perfectly paved road. She believes that she's a lot more beyond it than she actually is. She's built up a new life for herself. She has a new place, new roommates, new relationship, and she's definitely far down this journey, but in a way that I think is going to become very relatable for a lot of audience members. The road to recovery is a long and treacherous one, and that you will find yourself hitting these bumps and hitting these obstacles along the way before discovering real healing. There are moments in the film in which Faye is reminded of something that she thought she had worked past, and rather than expelling it completely and really, removing it from her life, what she did is she shoved it very deep down where it eventually bubbled up and resurfaced. So, throughout the film, I think Faye does discover that she's not as healed as she thought she was, that she still has a lot of work to do. And by looking at Belle, she's reminded of where she used to be and how far she's come, but also still how far she has to go to get out of this life that she's escaped from.
Definitely. And oh my God, I didn't allow to tear up after that. But obviously, the road to recovery is so important for this movie, and especially in the climax of this film between Belle and Faye, it really hammers in the toxicity and gaslighting that's become just really prominent in today's world. How do you both think that this film and your collaboration on it can help those that are sort of victimized by these similar circumstances?
Well, there was a wonderful moment at the end of day 3 when somebody on the crew, who I won't name, came up to me and said that they had been in an abusive relationship too, and the film made them feel seen. So if people can recognize something of either Faye or Belle, I think. I think they're both a little bit morally complicated, perhaps Belle more so. But if people can recognize something of their own circumstances in it and get some kind of healing from that, then that would be a wonderful thing. It's obviously sounds a little bit high-minded as an artist to say like, oh, I just hope my art can like heal people's broken feeling.
I think communication's important here because, we start the film with, like I said, Faye might have like kind of like this higher moral structure than Belle does when we first see her, but she still goes into it talking at Belle rather than with her about the situation. having this idea that I know what's best, I know how to recover, I know what you need to do. And I'm hoping that this opens up conversations, because I think by people realizing that this trauma isn't all that uncommon, that a lot of people have been through it before, that there isn't one road to recovery. There are a lot of methods to getting out of this and how to kind of rediscover yourself.
You said it really well earlier on. You said everybody has, well, a lot of people have a DD.
Exactly. A lot of people have a DD in their lives. I've spoken to people on set who saw scenes that I was in and said, you were fantastic in the scene, but it was very hard to watch. It was very hard to watch me go through it, because they remember people in their lives who had driven them to that point. And I think the more that those conversations happen, where people can relate with one another on these traumatic instances from their lives, the more people can find the multiple paths there are to getting out of them and recovering from that trauma.
Definitely. I think I've sort of gone through some of that experience back in like high school, back in like middle school, and I can definitely resonate with sort of that emotional toll that Belle and Faye are both sharing in this film. So obviously I have to say thank you for just sort of encompassing that idea and presenting it in a really clear and sort of subtle way. So yeah.
Thank you so much.
And for, I think I have time for one last question. For you, Morgana, I really found your character as Faye interesting because in some ways she seems very similar to Sally in from Helluva Boss. How did that sort of role help you mentally prepare for this film? And what traits for your character here resonated with you on a level similarly to Sally?
I think that there is kind of a sisterly dynamic between how Faye views Belle. You know, they've had a similar background. They go back a long ways with one another. So I think that between the two of them, there is kind of this familial bond with one another, in which it may not be perfect, but I think that they come together very closely by the end of the film as well, in the way their relationship works. Um, I have to say, I really kind of enjoy the sort of sniping moments that one another have with each other in this film, that I think kind of connects them a little bit more. I think that there are like moments between one another in the way that they rib each other, the way that they kind of give each other shit, that feels a little almost sisterly than anything else. So I think that that relationship definitely comes through. I'm a snarky bitch, so most of the characters that I play are inevitably going to have some of those elements in it as well. It didn't hurt that we had Blitz as our waiter during it. So, you know, if that brought out some of that, then that was only natural that, you know, we can promote this. And it's like, hey, for all of you Helluva Boss fans, if you want to see Sally Mae and Blitz in a vampire film together with Sharako from House of the Dragon, have we got the movie for you? Yeah.
Oh yeah,
But
I can
all
just
the characters, I mean, you know, this character that Abby has written for me, I mean, a lot of that came from personal experiences that we've had together and conversations we've had together. Sometimes in like extremely humorous ways, and sometimes in very deep ways. Like, we've talked about toxic relationships with one another, and those conversations have carried over to the film. We've talked about me thirsting over the perfect burger before, and that has made its way into the film. And for me with Sally, um, you know, I didn't audition for Sally Mae. It was a role that was offered to me directly by Vivian Madrano, who knew she wanted me in the show and had me in mind for this character. And, you know, in the same way that like I'm such close friends with Abby, I'm also very close friends with Viv as well. So I think inevitably when you know somebody is playing that role, especially after seeing them perform it a few times, you know, a little bit of that person is going to seep more into it. You know, the dialogue is going to be written knowing that person's going to be playing that character. So I do often say that a character is about 70% on the page, and then the rest of the character is what that person individually brings to it. It's why a character is wildly different depending on what equally talented actress takes that character on, because that is that extra ingredient they add into it. So whatever ingredient I added into Sally Mae is the same ingredient that I've added into this mixture for Faye.
definitely. And obviously I can just see that through like Faye's snarkiness with Belle, especially when she like nears when she's about to bite her after figuring out that Belle's not really human. Well, I mean, Belle is turning into a human actually, but I can just
They
see
is.
that shine through the best way possible. And a little sneak peek question, considering that you worked with Brandon here, and obviously you both are connected to Helluva Boss, do you think you could possibly appear in Hazbin Hotel's second season?
I am not involved in Hazbin Hotel's second season. I can say that. I'm very close with that entire cast. I also work on the production as well. So I'm involved in the merch, licensing, creative partnerships, and everything for Hazbin, as well as often being the host for most of the Hazbin Hotel events and panels. So I am very close to that cast, but I am also not a world famous Broadway performer. So I have a lot of skills as an actress. I have not built up the skills to carry a Broadway performance like Erica Henningsen yet. We'll see where my career
Yeah,
goes, but it is not
hopefully.
there yet. I will say, though, much more Sally Mae coming in Helluva Boss for sure.